It's November the 8th, 2022, and our reading today in the book of Psalms is in Psalm 61. Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you've been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. For you have heard my vows, O God. You've given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Increase the days of the king's life, his years for many generations. May he be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then will I ever sing praise to your name and fulfill my vows day after day. Amen. Well, this psalm is short and I think exceptionally sweet. It's a real gem in the book of Psalms, and yet its opening verse is like that. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. You couldn't get more straightforward and more beautiful and more expressive and simple than that, we might say. But as with so many of the Psalms, there are problems that David is facing here. They're not as extreme, they're not as obvious as some of the other Psalms, but straight away we find that. So, for example, in the opening few verses, yes, verse 1 wouldn't hint at that particularly, but then we get to verse 2. From the ends of the earth I called to you. I call as my heart grows faint. He has some sense of distance from God, or at least some sense of being excluded or exiled from the house of God, from the people of God. We'll see that more coming up later. And so his heart is faint, having this sense that he's far away from God. We can sometimes struggle with those emotions, can't we? And when we do, a short, sweet psalm like this, read or sung, can be very comforting, very helpful. When he says, lead me to the rock that is higher than I, the rock is surely Yahweh. But why does he have to be led back there? Again, the same idea. And this plea of verse 2 is grounded in verse 3, the fact that he has seen better days in the past. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe, implying that at the moment that's not quite working as once it did for him. And he wants it again. He needs it again. He's crying out for that reality again. Look at verse 4. I long to dwell in your tent forever. Same idea. The tent, the sanctuary, the dwelling place of God. And not just what we might call the church today, the meeting place where God can be found or drawing near to his presence. He's actually talking about God himself, as the verse goes on, and to take refuge in the shelter of your wings. It's not just formal and institutional, the tent, the temple, a church, or whatever. It seems that he is cut off from that. But because of that, he feels cut off from God. And he wants to get back to having a close, intimate relationship with God. And again, this is something he's enjoyed in the past. And when he reflects on those past blessings in verse 5, it encourages him to pray again for something that he's already tasted, he already knows. Verse 5, for he's praying like this, because you have heard my vows, O God, in the past, we might say. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name, the people of God, Israel, with the dwelling place of God in the midst, the temple. So this is what he's longing for, crying out for, and desperately needs. Whatever's happened, however he's been kind of dislocated and flung far from the place of blessing and of the people of God. Who knows? But he longs for it and prays that he might get back to it. Then in verses 6 and 7, rather strangely, it doesn't quite seem to fit in with what we're looking at up to this point. David suddenly prays for the king. Increase the days of the king's life. Oh, this is slightly odd, partly because, as I say, it doesn't fit in with what we've said already. It just seems to, come out of nowhere. But also David is the king. So is he praying for himself? But look at the language in which he prays. Verse 6, his years for many generations. Well, David will not live for many generations. And then verse 7, may he, the king, be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Again, this is extravagant, grand language. And surely, as if out of nowhere, but maybe it does connect with what he said before. This longing to know the Lord, to know Yahweh, to be intimate and close and have that heart-to-heart relationship with him. Maybe it does connect with that, because how do we get that and maintain that ultimately? Through the King who has come to us, through the Messianic King, through the King who will come at Christmas, spoken of by the angel to the Virgin Mary in Luke 1:31-33. You will be with child and give birth to a son, and you're to give him the name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end. That's the vision that David has back in Psalm 61. That's his prayer, which will be answered. And in the answer to that prayer, in the coming of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, that's how all these other longings and desires and needs and spiritual hunger and desire that he has will all be satisfied. So whether we're looking forward to, or as we are now, and particularly over the next few weeks, looking back at the coming of the Christmas King, I think verse 8, well, I mean, the whole psalm we can use as a special sort of Christmas psalm or preparation for Christmas. But verse 8 surely sums it all up. Then will I ever sing praise to your name and fulfill my vows day after day.